Solar. I know there's so many questions, and I'm answering some of yours today because you guys are asking me about batteries and trying to sell, and do I need to put a battery on, and what's happening with solar. And then we'll cover what each of them are: power purchase agreement, owned, and a lease. So stay tuned. We're going to do a nice update 2024 for solar, and we're going to cover all the bases. In case you don't know, I am Angel, your local Bakersfield Realtor. You have reached the Living in Bakersfield channel. Ta-da! If you are thinking about moving to Bakersfield, calling this place home, being a part of this incredible community, feel free to reach out to me. A call, a text, an email. We'll get that process started. My team and I would love to help you wherever you are. Do you have a property to sell? Are you coming here for a visit? Do we need to go get new construction together? Whatever the case may be, we are here to help you. And I look forward to going through that process with you. YouTube likes it when you subscribe. I like it when you like and subscribe and comment. So let's make everybody happy today and like, subscribe, leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think about this information that's being given to you. And then, if I need to make a part two, I absolutely will do that for you. In addition to what I have just explained to you, I'm going to give you access to an expert, a solar expert. He's actually the solar guy. So his name is Austin Powell. He's the solar guy. He's the expert.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. And I want my audience to get to know you because you said you've been doing this a while. You and I know the solar language, but for people that are buying a house or moving here to Bakersfield or have never lived in California, solar is a big old fat question mark. So let's see if we can help them with some of the things that might be, that they don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
Absolutely. So this is my 10th year doing solar. I've been only with 2 companies. I was a previous Solar City guy, but I'm a partner at Fusion currently, and I've been around the industry a long time. I've helped thousands of customers do solar projects at their home. Yeah, so I'm happy to help. One question, right, and we'll just high level it really quickly. Like, why do people do solar? Why is it so popular in California, especially? You drive around the neighborhoods. Why are there so many panels on people's homes? And at a really high level, we have a very, very expensive utility cost in California. And so it is substantially less expensive monetarily to put panels on your home and produce your own power versus buying it from the utility company.
One of the things that I think is a big misconception when people get solar is they think they're going to be off the grid, Ted Kaczynski style living. They're going to be there's going to be a power outage and they're going to be the only one with lights on. That is not what solar is going to do. Am I right?
Correct. In most cases, yes. So 2 things, right? Number one is it is illegal in California if you have a utility connection present to actually be off grid. So if you just go out to your main breaker, you shut it off and you decide, I'm not buying any power, I'm going to run my generator, they'll come condemn your house, right? They want you hooked up to utility. The good news, you don't actually have to buy power from the utility. You can produce your own power. And in a lot of cases, when we're doing solar batteries, you actually can be the one in your neighborhood who power goes out, you have access to your creature comforts, in your home.
Your fridge, your Wi-Fi, your TV.
Yeah, maybe you're the burglar alarm. You want your food to stay cold in your fridge. You want to be able to charge your phone and turn some lights on. You want your alarm to stay on if you're away. Things like that.
Now, the battery. I'm having a lot of people reach out and ask me about battery. I have a client that says he can't sell his house / solar on his home unless he gets a battery. I said, where did you get that information?
Yeah.
The answer was a little vague. I've had comments on my YouTube channel saying they can't buy a house unless it has a battery. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm got clients that are buying new construction and there's no battery on that house. Help me out with the battery, what it does and why we need it. And do we need to start thinking about, for those of us that have solar, do we need to start thinking about getting a battery?
Yeah, great question. So I think 2 things on this topic as well. Is the first one, just again, at a really high level, battery is not required in California. You don't have to have one. In a second, I can talk about why you would want one if you're a new customer going solar, but you don't need one. It's not required. There's no law or ordinance requiring you to get a battery. But secondly, net metering is the program that you're on. So you go solar, your solar only produces during the day. So what happens at night? And how do you account for the power you're utilizing at night?
Right.
There's 3 net metering programs. And if you went solar prior to 2016, you would be on net metering 1.0. It just means it's a dollar for dollar credit. Yeah, you're old school. Same thing in my house, right? I have net metering 1.0. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is when I send power or use power. It's just dollar for dollar back and forth. Then in 2016, November-ish, they transferred to NEM 2.0. NEM 2.0 then changed it to time of use. So there's a slight variance from 4 to 9 p.m. on what you actually get credit for and or get charged for.
Now let me pause that. So when you're saying that would be what somebody who doesn't have solar is like peak usage, right? They have those little peak performance times where you see that little chart and whatnot. And so like, like don't do laundry from 4 to 9. Don't run your dishwasher, start a project in the garage with 17 saws from 4 to 9. Like, hold on.
If you can limit your power from those timeframes, it helps, because that's when they have their peak demand, so they're charging you more. But honestly, the delta between peak and off peak is so little. It's in most cases a couple cents. And so even if you could use all of your power for the whole month, only between, outside of those hours, you're going to save yourself $10 to $20 a month. It doesn't a lot of times make that big of a difference. So even customers on net metering 2.0, a lot of people ask me because they have a TrueUp, which I know we're going to get to later, but we'll talk about what that is. But they'll say, man, I need a battery, because their idea is that they would take that battery and when they need that peak time, they would use the battery. But again, the delta between those hours, if you're on net metering 2.0, it's so little. The issue comes with our current net metering. So starting in April last year, the utility really changed in California how they credit you for power. So now on net metering 3.0, during the daytime, and it changes every month and it changes every hour, you can be getting no credit for power if you send it back to the grid, or very little credit. And so that's where we'll talk about batteries, why you need a battery. You want to self-consume. So instead of sending that power back to the utility where they give you little to no credit, we'll actually store it in the home in a battery and then utilize that battery when you need that power. But again, remember, this is for customers who do not have solar, who are going solar now.
So when somebody is buying a house, there's no solar on it. They've lived there about 6 to 9 months and they're like, geez, oh Pete, this PG&E bill is going to drown me. We need to get solar so that we aren't killed by these, because it's so hot in Bakersfield in the Central Valley, deep into September and October. Sometimes we're even still in triple digits coming up on Halloween. It's hot for a very long amount of time. And those bills, you start thinking, holy crap, when is it going to get less? And then, you're into, November, December, and January, and it really drops off. So those things, like you're talking about the delta, I sound like I'm getting ready to fly a plane or something. The delta, those make a difference. And you think, I've got to get solar because this thing is going to drown me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You do need a battery now. So it's not a requirement, but to really utilize the full benefit of solar, you need to have a battery with your system, and we're including them with ours currently. But
what am I thinking? Am I thinking of something that's going to be like attached to the wall? Am I plugging my Tesla into it? I mean, I don't have a Tesla, but somebody might have a Tesla. But you know what I mean? Like, what does this battery? Where does it live? On my roof?
Yeah, it's either going to sit in your garage next to your inverter, or just outside next to your main electric panel, depending on your jurisdiction and what's allowed in each jurisdiction. Because Kern County versus City of Bakersfield, and then outlying communities can be different. But they're not. They sit 6 to 8 inches off the wall. They're really sleek looking. They're both outdoor and indoor rated. But you're utilizing that battery in a scenario where you would typically, again, be sending that power back to the grid and getting no credit. So could you do a system now without batteries? Yes, but you would end up offsetting only a portion of your bill versus the end goal, which is to offset the majority of any usage that you have.
Those are going to be required going forward, or no?
I don't see that they would require it, because all that would happen is the utility company would make more money, and they don't mind if you pay them more money. Yeah, just know that most companies now going forward, right, with the battery situation, if you don't have solar currently, you're going to be faced with the option to have a battery or not. It's highly recommended. Most companies aren't going to install the solar without doing a battery. Again, just make sure you're using a reputable licensed contractor. You've done your research and looked at reviews, because reviews can be very helpful. Just because you went by Costco and they were able to set an appointment with you doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do a great job or you're going to get the best price. And then always get a second quote.
Now, you and I know in this solar language, we talk power purchase agreement, we talk owned, we talk solar, and we talk the beloved TrueUp. Let's talk about the TrueUp first. Let's reverse engineer this on why you would how you would have a true up and then go backward from there. Yeah.
So yeah, and so a true up is, so when we talked about the net metering program, which is again your ability to send power back to the utility company and get a credit depending on which program you're on. At the end of the 12-month cycle, because you go from a monthly billing to a yearly billing once you go solar.
Right.
And at the end of your fiscal year, you will true up with the utility company, right? And that can be
offset. Yeah.
usually you say true up and it has a bad context, because what happens is that somebody has utilized more power than their solar produced. But there are
100%.
scenarios where you can produce more power than your solar if it's built correctly. And so either they'll owe you money or you'll owe them money. But again, the majority of people that say I have a true up, they're stating to the fact that they used more power than their solar system produced.
And everybody lives differently. So if I'm helping somebody buy a house that has a family of 4 in it, and my buyer is a family of 7, that usage is going to be very, very different, right? So
Correct.
One homeowner might keep the house at, 80, and another might have somebody ill or a baby, and they want to keep it lower. So those things make the offset and the true up different for every homeowner.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people want to know all the time, can you just tell me how much I need? What's the general? I said, there's no general. I've been in 7,000 square foot Seven Oaks homes that their average bill is $80. And
Yes.
I've been in 800 square foot houses in the 93308 zip code that their average is $800.
Yes.
What do you have plugged in? Air conditioning usage in the Central Valley tends to be the biggest factor. Are you a
Right.
68 cup of person? Are you a 74? Are you an 80, right?
Right.
I mean, my house, I use a lot of power. We keep it at 72 degrees for the 5 hot months. It doesn't change. So everybody's going to use a different amount of power. And I do tell people that when you're buying a house with solar, get with a reputable solar person that you can trust, and do checkups at the 3 and 6 month mark once you've gotten through. So you can get a gauge as what is that system going to produce all your power, or are you going to utilize more power? Because again, you move in, they didn't have an electric car, but you do.
Right.
That's going to make a big difference. You're not buying gas for that car, but you're buying electricity.
You bet. So now that we're talking true up, now when we talk about like how their system is set up, you mentioned that just a minute ago. So there's the power purchase agreement, there's the lease, and there's the owned. How can you explain that to people? Because I explain it all day, every day, but I want to hear how you explain it.
Great question. So I would say, first of all, think about it like you're going to purchase a vehicle, because that's really common. Most people have purchased a vehicle. When you buy a vehicle, the financing mechanism you choose, whether you write a check for that car, you do financing for that car, or you do a lease for that car, you ultimately get the same thing. You're getting the same vehicle, you're getting the same warranty, and it's like that with solar. So regardless of that mechanism you choose, you're going to have the same warranties, you're going to get the same benefits. There's really no difference. Now the difference becomes is, number one, do you have tax liability? Because for customers who want to purchase a system, it's important that they have federal income tax liability, because there's a huge benefit there. 30% of whatever you spend, you get as a federal tax credit.
Yes.
If you can utilize that money to help pay off 30% of your system, you will pay substantially less than doing either a PPA or a lease. And really, Angel, the PPA and a lease are very, very similar.
Yes.
Typically, if you lease or PPA, at the end of the year, you will pay about the exact same amount of money. The difference is number one, they typically have what's called an escalator, which is really careful to. So an escalator means that it's going to go up by a certain percentage, typically 2.9 to 3.9% every year.
Yep.
They're really front loaded. They're really low on the front end and really high on the back end.
Yes.
Number two, you're not going to ever own that system. Typically.
Correct.
Now there are some options out there where they do end up owning it, but usually you're going to pay for 25 years and they're going to want you to renew that or do a new lease.
I get a lot of people that say, we want to just pay off the solar. We don't want to mess with it. And I'm like, do you though? Is it really in your best interest if this is not the house that you're going to live in forever and ever? Amen. Is that really an expense that you would consider, I'm not here to tell somebody what they should or shouldn't consider valuable, but like, are you really going to get an ROI on that investment of paying it off just so you can say you're not messing with solar? Like, it doesn't really make sense, in most scenarios to think about, I'm going to pay it off when I buy this house. Like when you buy the house, paying off the rest of the solar bill that's a chunk.
It always depends on a couple factors, right? The first factor is, what is the current pay off and what is their interest rate? We always looked at the cost of funds, right? Is it at a 2.99 interest rate and you're getting a 6% on your house? Does it make any sense to put those funds towards the 2.99 interest rate? Now, you do see some high interest rates, and there are times when it can be valuable to pay that off. And the second factor is, how long are you going to live there? Is this a 5-year plan for you, and you're moving out of state again, or you're going to upgrade? Why would you pay that off? You're doing it for the benefit of somebody else. when you can
Right.
simply transfer it to the person just like it was transferred to you.
Right.
Now, new customers, I do suggest if you do have the cash outlay, you will always save the most amount of money and have the biggest ROI if you're able to pay cash for the solar. But it's about 15% of our business. It's a very small amount that have that money to pay, initially the upfront cost.
The people that buy it straight up outright, I want $70,000 worth of solar on my roof to offset
Yeah.
my bill by 40%.
70,000 is a little heavy, but yeah, I mean, I would say that it's, depends on the house, depends on
I'm thinking of that Seven Oaks home you were talking about.
yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. Just remember too, we didn't talk about this, but financing for solar is always going to have what are called dealer fees. So when you're purchasing, so think about it like you're doing a mortgage on a house and you're buying the rate down, right? The initial rate's 6% and you want to buy it down to a 4.99. You're going to pay fees up front to do that. And solar's like that as well. So you're going to get a 10.99 or an 11.99. If you want to buy that rate down, it's going to cost you anywhere between 8 to 40% of the cost of that loan. So yes, it's going to drive the payment down. So for people who are payment focused, it's going to really drive that payment down, but you're going to finance a lot more money. So there's kind of weighing those options. Do you want to finance the least amount of money and you're going to pay it off quickly? Or is this like, hey, you know yourself and you're like, I'm never going to pay this thing off. I might as well get the lowest payment.
So if you were talking to buyers, like I talk to buyers, you talk to buyers of solar, I talk to buyers of homes a lot. What do you wish you could be like a fly on the wall and wish you could tell them of like, hey, here's what you really need to make sure of? Like, what would be the one thing you would want to tell them?
There's two things probably in general. And one is just really be sure that you're vetting the company you're working with. You're always going to get a better deal when you're not working through a broker or somebody who's a third-party salesperson. Typically the people that knock on your door and, it's like, oh, sure, give me a quote. They're typically going to be a broker of some kind. They're a middleman between you and the actual installer.
Okay.
And then two, what I noticed with a lot of buyers is they don't go look at reviews. Go look at a third-party review site that can't be purchased. Like, Yelp is kind of a pay to play, not a great place to do it, but Google, Facebook, where people can leave reviews and make sure that company has hundreds of reviews, not just, they have a 5-star rating, but they have 4 people who have reviewed the business.
Right.
And what you find a lot of times is they're working through a national company. They're not getting the best pricing they could get and they're not being competitive. So, get a competitive quote, right? Make sure that you understand your usage. So, it helps to be in the house for a little while. Do you need to be there a whole year? No, but if we can get a couple summer months, we can see how you're going to use power and a couple what we call baseline months, the months where you're not running the air conditioning. It's usually pretty easy to size a system accurately.
So when you say size a system, so do you guys have in mind, and maybe this is different per company, but do you have in mind, okay, we want to offset their bill by 70%, by 40%, like based on it's a 1,800 square foot house, 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath. Okay, they're going to need however many panels. Do you go into it with that, or do you let the homeowner say, I want my payment, when you were saying somebody's payment focused, I want my payment to be no more than $300 a month?
Yeah, it's like I tell people all the time, shopping for a car, or shopping for anything by payment, is this terrible way to buy something. So there really has to be a conversation between the homeowner. Like here's a great example. I had a customer recently that went solar. We did about an 80% offset, but he has 2 girls who are getting ready to go to college who are there most of the time, utilizing a lot of power while him and his wife work away from the home. So in that case, he's going to actually, in the next year or so, he's going to utilize a substantially, and one of them drives an electric vehicle. So they've got no vehicle charging. They've got nobody home during the day now. So why size that thing so big when their usage is going to drop? And then another scenario, I just helped a gentleman. He's been keeping his air conditioning at 85 degrees because he can't afford to run it where he really wants to run it. In that case, we're actually at 130% offset. So he can actually utilize his AC. Here's the great thing. His bill dropped by $50 a month. So he's going to be able to utilize his AC when he hasn't been and save money at the same time.
I could not imagine keeping my house at 85. This is April 2024.
Yeah.
It was 90 degrees yesterday.
Yeah.
It's going to be 80 some odd today. It is hot in Bakersfield. I tell people this all the time. It is hot in Bakersfield from, generally speaking, April to November. We have a handful of months where it's, cool or cold.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we are hot more than we're not here.
Yeah. No,
and why not maximize what we're living through anyway?
No, absolutely. I will say, like, the days, there used to be days when, we could go save people 50% on their bill. You could go from paying $500 a month to $250 a month, right? And now that you have to have a battery, the savings is not as great. But when I first started doing this, a lot of times people would actually pay a little bit more per month to go solar because they knew that, number one, it was going to be predictable and it was going to be stable. They knew exactly what they were going to pay every month. They didn't have these big swings between summer and winter. And then they knew that that was what they were going to pay even in 10 years. So now you look back at those customers. Now those customers are saving 50% because they locked in that rate low.
Right.
Even now, can you save 50%? Usually not. Usually you're saving 20 to 30% depending on your usage profile.
Right.
But it's a predictable payment that's not going to change as the utility raised their rates a little over 17% this year. The customers that did their solar last year didn't see that because they're still paying the same stable rate.
Now, where do you see solar going forward? Do you see, obviously here in the Valley, we're going to continue to see it on homes. What do you think is going to happen with solar?
Yeah, good question. I mean, that's something I think every solar professional, we're a licensed contractor. So we think about those things that, where's the industry going? What's it look like? I think you see a big growth in solar. I mean, every new home in California is required to have solar. So we see, opportunities where we're doing new construction. On top of those, customers are just doing the minimum. So they move into the house and they realize, hey, those 8 panels or 10 panels, they're not going to cut it. I need more. So we see a lot of panel ads. I think what you'll see here in the next 5 to 7 years in the industry is, number one, batteries will get substantially less expensive as the technology improves.
Oh, that's encouraging.
Because they're not cheap. They're not giving those things away. Their lithium iron phosphate is a very expensive material. They're being utilized in electric vehicles. There's a really high demand for it. But also, I think you'll see what we call replacements. So customers who did solar 20 years ago, they were early adopters. Now they're finding that those panels, they weren't the same quality as what we have now. And we're doing a lot of replacements where we come in and we take everything off the roof and replace it with new equipment.
Start fresh. I have had clients that have said that they think the panels are going to be smaller and more, receptive, have more receiving whatevers those are called. I'm not a solar person, but I know they have to get all of the sunlight and it's got a fancy name. Yeah.
Well, they've said it for 10 years. I hear customers say it all the time. Do I think that, you're going to come to a place where you're going to have a small square on your roof that produces all the power for your home? Probably not possible, right? Will technology improve? I really hope so, right? The industry has to move forward. And we've seen panels go from 200 watts to 400 watts, so the footprint on the roof, can be substantially smaller. Now, for customers that went solar and have those 200 watt panels, the system still is producing all their power. Yes, they have more panels than they maybe could have had, but for the last 10 years, they've received the benefit of, not having an electricity bill or having a very small electricity bill. So will technology, energy efficiencies, panel efficiencies, they'll get better over time. Who knows? Maybe 50 years, will there be something new? I don't know. If you're waiting for it though, the problem is it's like waiting to buy a new car till the new technology, or waiting to buy the newest Apple computer. You're just going to keep waiting and you'll never pull the trigger.
And one of the things that I always advocate for is they're only as good as clean as they are. You have got to get the panels cleaned. Do you agree with that?
I've been back and forth over my career in the solar industry. So people do ask a lot, should I have them cleaned? If you're doing a PPA or a lease, they will put in those requirements. Like, for instance, you need to keep your trees and your bushes and your hedges trimmed so they received as much sunlight as it did the day they installed it. You need to keep the panels clean. For a purchase, a good company, and just so you know, we're about 95% ownership or purchase as a company. Yet we factor in a 7% loss in what we say they're going to produce for what we call environmental soiling. And here's why. I understand, I don't clean the panels at my house. I'm not going to get on the roof and clean them. I'm not going to pay a guy. And here's what I'll tell you, Angel, that a lot of people forget. If you're going to have them clean, do it for the aesthetics of that you want to see them clean. Because in Bakersfield, Kern County, you're going to have them cleaned. You're going to pay, $2 to $4 per panel to have your solar cleaned. So let's just call it, $80 to $100. You're then going to turn around. They're going to produce a drastic amount, 15% more the next day. Then 3 days later, they're going to be dirty again, producing back what they were producing. So you got an extra $10 in electricity, but you paid $80. My suggestion is always, if you have the ability to clean them yourself, do it, right? If not, stick that money in your savings account, let it grow over the year.
I think you're great, but I disagree with you. I notice a huge difference. First of all, when I'm driving and I pull up to a house and people that have them on the front of their house, and I'm like, just aesthetically, clean it. It's icky. But then secondly, we get a lot of dust when they're doing the shaking of the trees, when they're harvesting certain things. getting that crap off of your panels makes a huge difference. And then you've got the pigeons that they get rid of, like the guy that we use, Solar Care of Bakersfield, he gets
Yeah.
the pigeons off, like, because they'll nest underneath those. So
Yeah, you should be
like
doing
I'm a
bird
big
guard. Bird guard keeps them away.
yes, yes, he
Yeah,
puts the
and
bird
I will
guards on
tell
there.
you, I'm
Yeah,
happy to dialogue on another conversation with you on that. I've done it with about 6 or 7 different guys, and I said, hey, listen, man, show me the data. Like, show me the data that having them cleaned equates to the amount of electricity. Because again, it's not that it doesn't help; it does. There's a drastic difference the day you have them cleaned, but within
yeah,
a 3 to 5 day period, they're dirty again. And so that small window of clean. Now, I will tell you, when I had them on the front of my house, I cleaned them myself, and I tell people, if they're reachable with a water hose, early morning or late evening when it's not hot, just spray them off with a water hose. They'll look clean. They'll produce a lot more. But if you're gonna have them cleaned, do it during the summer months. Have them cleaned. In those peak summer months where you're producing. I would say June 21st is summer solstice. It's the longest day of the year. It's your highest producing day of the year.
yeah,
Have them cleaned in that time frame, that early June to early July.
yeah. That's usually when he's out at our house, and then I try and get him before all the harvesting, and we're still getting sun, but all the yuck is still in the air. I'm like, ugh, get all that crap off my panels. And so when they're looking for not only the service and the reviews, but like, what else should somebody be looking for when they're doing their research to figure out what company they want? Obviously, price, availability, customer service, right? Who's going to be contacting them? Who are they
Yeah.
going to contact if if there's a leak on the roof? Like, are those like what they should be researching, or is there something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on all of those things. It's really hard to unless you're an engineer and you're going to spend, weeks and weeks and weeks doing all this research, it can be really difficult. I think generally looking at people with hundreds and hundreds of reviews that are licensed contractors can give you a general idea of whether this company is going to be reputable. I mean, for us, the biggest thing that we find is that companies do go out of business, right? Especially your local contractors. So utilizing a company that's going to have the backstop, so we're a Panasonic Elite dealer. So when we install solar, we install Panasonic. It's backed by Panasonic's 25-year bumper to bumper warranty. So the great news is now, I hope we don't ever go out of business. We're a multi-licensed contractor. We do HVAC, we do artificial turf. We have a lot of business outside of solar,
Sure.
but you can't predict economy. So what happens, Angel? I do your solar, we're hanging out, our kids are hanging out, and you say, hey, Austin, my stuff doesn't work. And I'm like, sorry, Angel, we're out of business. You don't have a warranty on the labor side. That doesn't bode well, especially if you're invested in the community like we are. And so what we have is we have Panasonic. So they'll actually step in when you're an elite dealer for them and cover all the service, so a customer never has to worry about not having a warranty, which is, again, get calls every day at our office. They went solar with some guy who knocked on their door or some company out of town, and it was cheap. They just don't have a warranty anymore because they're out of business.
The no warranty we encounter a lot when we have a sale, when they've got to transfer and get everything moved over. We always got to make sure, like, okay, any warranty, any service guarantees that you have, we need to make sure that transfers over to the new homeowner as well.
You deal with this a lot. Actually, I'll tell you a story that happened to me this week. I had a customer call me. She purchased a home that had a solar that we had done on it. And you are supposed to contact us for the warranty to be transferable. It's supposed to be done in writing. They're supposed to let us know. We get the deed from the new homeowner. We transfer it over. So, I didn't not honor the warranty. I said, hey, listen, you should have contacted us years ago when you bought this home. And then 2, she had no monitoring. She had no way to know if the solar was working. So the reason for her call is she actually got a big TrueUp bill because the solar hadn't been working. Well, when you move out of a house, your Wi-Fi that's connected to goes away. And if you don't call us and tell us, we can't come reconnect it. So we can't see it. You're not watching it. So, what I found in this process is that her agent, both the seller and the buyer's agent, really didn't understand solar like you did, right? And so in 2 things is that, hey, you got to deal with the solar company when you're transferring this and make sure that, number 1, that the warranty is getting transferred, but number 2, that the monitoring, because now guess what she found out? It's in phase and they charge $199 to switch that over, which should have been paid by the seller, but now the buyer's incurring that.
No bueno.
Yeah. So, find an agent that knows, like you, Angel, that knows what they're talking about, that knows, what to do in that process to really get it switched over, make sure it's working, make sure you can see that it's working.
We always have that scenario, and that's very sweet of you. I appreciate the compliment, but I can't tell you the number of times I'm like, because everybody's got the app. right? Like, did you
Yeah.
shut down this app and let it know that it's talking to somebody else now? Like, make sure not just removing it from your phone, like it needs to make sure that it's talking to the new homeowner, because otherwise it's just going to be floating out there in the stratosphere and nobody's going to know anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and have
Yeah.
it checked out. It doesn't hurt. We do free system checks on, for new homeowners.
Good
So
to
if
know.
you think there may not be a warranty, most companies, if they're still in business, will do that for free. They'll get it hooked back up to the new customer's Wi-Fi. There are times though that there is a charge to switch the monitoring over, and it's not charged by the company; it's charged by the manufacturer.
Right.
Because there is work on the back end to get that new account created.
That's so great. Well, thank you so much, Austin, for just, forgive the term, vomiting up all of your knowledge.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you are clearly very well versed in, all the ins and outs of solar. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to come and just give all this information to my audience, because it is a conversation we have all day long in this industry. It's really something that, like, I don't need my clients to become experts. I just need them to understand the framework. And then if we get into the weeds, I can hand them off to you and be like, let's get you a hold of
Yeah.
Austin and he can sort out all the things, because it can be a little overwhelming. Obviously, buying a house is overwhelming. Selling a house can be overwhelming. And then the solar is like a whole other animal, So I really appreciate you taking the time to come here and just give us all of the information.
Feel free to call or text me. If I don't answer, probably text message is the best way, because I am in homes with customers a lot of the time.
Okay.
But if you've ever had the guy that you call them and they never get back to you, it's like, hey, just call me or text me. I'll return your call by the end of the day. Happy to.
And we will have all of that information in the description below. We'll put it at the bottom of the screen. And I am so grateful that you took the time today to come and share with us everything that you know and then some.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, Angel.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it.